Creating a budget is often the first step people take toward financial freedom. However, many find themselves abandoning their budget after a few weeks or months. Why? Because most budgets fail. Whether it's due to unrealistic expectations, a lack of planning, or simply not sticking to plan, budgeting can seem overwhelming, especially when it feels restrictive. But the truth is, budgets don't fail because they don't work. They fail because they're not created with realistic goals or flexibility in mind. If your budget feels like a burden, it's likely because you're trying to adhere to a rigid set of rules instead of a personalized system that works for your life and goals. Common reasons budgets fail. There are a few common reasons why most budgets fail. Unrealistic expectations. One of the main reasons budgets fail is that people set unrealistic goals for themselves. For example, trying to cut all discretionary spending, like entertainment or dining out, when it's not feasible. When you create a budget that's too restrictive, it becomes difficult to stick to and can lead to frustration. Budgeting should be about balance, not deprivation. Too many categories. While it's important to track your spending, creating too many categories can make a budget feel overwhelming and difficult to maintain. If your budget has a dozen different categories for every possible expense, it becomes a chore to keep up with. Instead, start with broad categories like groceries, savings, and entertainment, and narrow it down over time as you get more comfortable. Lack of flexibility. Life is unpredictable. Expenses can pop up unexpectedly, and income may fluctuate. If your budget doesn't allow for flexibility, you're setting yourself up for failure. Your budget needs to evolve with your lifestyle, and adjustments should be made regularly to accommodate changes. How to avoid these pitfalls? Set realistic goals. Start by setting achievable, incremental goals that reflect your actual spending habits. If you aim to reduce your dining out expenses, make small reductions each month until you've reached your target. Trying to cut everything at once is a recipe for failure. A budget should feel empowering, not restrictive. Simplify your categories. Begin with broad categories like housing, transportation, and savings. Once you've mastered these basics, you can expand into more detailed categories. The simpler your categories are, the easier it will be to track your spending and stay within your limits. Allow for flexibility. Build a buffer into your budget for unexpected expenses. Life happens, and sometimes you'll need to adjust your budget on the fly. By leaving room for flexibility, you ensure that your budget doesn't become a source of stress when things don't go as planned. Financial freedom starts with a flexible plan. The most successful budgets are those that reflect the individual's lifestyle and priorities. Financial freedom begins when you're able to allocate your money in ways that align with your personal goals. It's not just about cutting costs, but about making your money work for you in a way that fits into your life. For example, Jamal started with a simple budget that focused on his immediate needs, paying off debt and saving for an emergency fund. As his income grew, he gradually increased his savings contributions and focused more on investments. His budget was flexible and adaptable to his life's changes. Creating a budget doesn't have to be a daunting task. In fact, building a simple and practical budget can be the most empowering step you take toward financial freedom. The key is to make the process manageable, realistic, and most importantly, align with your personal financial goals. Many people struggle with budgets because they try to adhere to a complicated, one-size-fits-all system. They create pages of categories and tracking sheets, only to find themselves feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. The solution isn't to add complexity, but to simplify the process. A practical budget is one that you can stick to over time, and one that gives you flexibility to adjust as your circumstances change. Set clear financial goals. Once you know how much money you have coming in and where it's going out, you can begin setting financial goals. These goals should be realistic, measurable, and aligned with your long-term aspirations. For example, you might set a goal to pay off credit card debt within 6 months or to save $500 for an emergency fund. Setting financial goals is one of the most important steps in budgeting because it gives your spending purpose. When you set clear goals, you have something to work toward, making it easier to stick to your budget. It's important to break your goals down into smaller milestones. Rather than saying, I want to save $10,000, a more achievable goal might be, I'll save $200 every month for the next 5 months. This way, You'll stay motivated and see progress along the way. Marcus had always dreamed of buying a house, but with student loans and credit card debt, he didn't know where to start. He set short-term goals like paying off his credit card debt, and once he achieved that, he focused on building up his savings. By breaking his long-term goal into smaller, achievable goals, Marcus was able to stay on track and make progress. Create spending categories. Now it's time to create categories for your spending. These categories should be flexible and broad enough to fit your lifestyle. Some common categories include essential expenses, housing, utilities, transportation, and groceries. Discretionary spending, entertainment, dining out, and shopping. Savings and investments, retirement accounts, emergency savings, and short-term savings goals. Debt repayment. Any monthly debt payments, such as credit card bills, loans, etc. Tanya allocated her monthly budget based on these categories. She ensured that her savings and debt repayment came first, followed by essential expenses, and then discretionary spending. This way, she could prioritize her financial health while still having room to enjoy life. One thing to note is that these categories are not set in stone. You may find that certain categories need to be expanded or reduced as your lifestyle changes. For instance, when Marcus started saving for a down payment on a home, he increased his savings and investments category and reduced his discretionary spending. Track and adjust as needed. Your budget should be a living document, not a one-time project. As life changes, so should your budget. If you receive a raise, have a baby, or pay off a loan, you'll need to adjust your categories and savings goals. Flexibility is key to ensuring that your budget works for you. Regularly reviewing your budget helps keep you on track and provides insights into your financial health. If you overspend in one category, don't panic. Adjustments can be made, and the important thing is that you stay focused on your financial goals. Tracking your spending is an essential part of the budgeting process. Without monitoring how much you're spending, it's easy to lose sight of your financial goals. The key to effective budgeting is regularly tracking where your money is going and adjusting your spending habits when needed. This helps you stay on track with your financial goals and ensures that you're not overspending in any particular area. The importance of tracking your spending cannot be overstated. It's a powerful tool that gives you the visibility you need to make informed decisions. Many people avoid tracking because they fear they might be overspending or realizing how much they're wasting. But the truth is, awareness is a first step toward control and improvement. Why tracking your spending is essential. When you actively track your spending, you gain a clearer picture of your financial situation. It can help you identify spending patterns. Tracking your spending allows you to identify patterns in your behavior. For example, do you tend to spend more on weekends? Do you often impulse buy when you're stressed or bored? By recognizing these patterns, you can take steps to change your spending habits. Evaluate your categories. Once you begin tracking your expenses, you can evaluate whether your budget categories are realistic. Maybe you're spending more on groceries than you initially expected, or you might be underestimating how much you spend on entertainment. Tracking your spending will help you determine whether your budget categories need adjusting. Help you stay on track with your goals. Tracking your spending helps keep your goals in focus. For example, if you're trying to save for vacation, but you realize you're overspending on dining out, you can adjust your budget to allocate more funds to savings. It acts as a check-in to ensure you're on track to meet your objectives effectively. There are many ways to track your spending, and the method you choose will depend on your preferences and lifestyle. Let's go over some of the most popular tracking methods. Manual tracking, pen and paper. The simplest way to track your spending is by writing it down manually. You can use a budget notebook or a physical ledger to record each purchase as you make it. While this can be time-consuming, it's an excellent option if you enjoy the process of writing things down and don't mind keeping a detailed log. Budgeting apps. Many people prefer using budgeting apps because they offer an easier way to track spending on the go. Apps like Mint, You Need a Budget in-app, and every dollar can connect to your bank accounts and credit cards, automatically categorizing your purchases. These apps also allow you to set spending limits for each category and send notifications when you're getting close to exceeding your budget. Jamal used a budgeting app to track his spending, which helped him realize how much he was spending on entertainment and dining out. By adjusting his categories and goals within the app, he was able to save money without feeling restricted. Spreadsheets. For those who prefer a more customized approach, spreadsheets can be a great option. You can create a budget template in programs like Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel and manually input each expense. There are also pre-made templates available that make it easy to start. Spreadsheets give you more control over how you categorize and analyze your expenses, adjusting your spending when necessary. It's important to review and adjust your budget regularly. Tracking your spending gives you the insight you need to identify areas where you're overspending. If you've been spending too much in one category, it's time to make changes. For example, Denise found that her grocery bill was consistently higher than expected. After reviewing her spending, she realized that she was purchasing more pre-packaged meals and takeout than she realized. By planning her meals more effectively, shopping with a list, and buying in bulk, she was able to cut her grocery bill in half while still eating healthy. When you track your spending, you'll also be able to make adjustments to your savings and debt repayment. If you find that you have more room in your budget than expected, you can allocate those extra funds toward long-term savings or investments. On the flip side, if you're struggling to meet your goals, you may need to cut back on discretionary spending or find additional sources of income. Tips for staying on track. Review regularly. Set aside time each week or month to review your spending. This will give you the chance to make adjustments before you go over budget. Be honest. Tracking your spending only works if you're honest about where your money is going. Don't hide purchases or underestimate your spending. Be as detailed as possible. Use visual aids. Many people find it helpful to create visual aids like charts or graphs to track progress. Seeing your spending in a visual format can help you stay motivated to stay on track with your goals. Set reminders. Set up reminders on your phone or calendar to review your spending or adjust your budget. A quick check-in every week can keep you accountable. Allocating money to your goals. Now that you've set your financial goals, it's time to allocate money in your budget to help you achieve them. This is where your budget categories come into play. For example, if your goal is to save for an emergency fund, you would allocate a portion of your income to the savings category each month. One common mistake people make is that they try to focus on too many goals at once. If you're paying off credit card debt, saving for retirement, and trying to buy a house all at the same time, it's easy to become overwhelmed. Instead, focus on one or two priority goals at a time. Once you've achieved one, you can move on to the next. Marcus found that focusing on one goal at a time helped him stay on track. First, he focused on paying off his credit card debt, then moved on to building his emergency fund, and finally, he saved for his down payment on a house. By concentrating on one goal at a time, he was able to make meaningful progress without feeling overwhelmed. Reviewing and adjusting your goals. Your financial goals may evolve over time as your circumstances change. It's important to review your goals regularly to see if they're still realistic or if they need to be adjusted. For example, you may have set a goal to save for a vacation, but then an unexpected medical expense arises. In this case, you may decide to shift your focus to emergency savings instead. That's okay. Life happens, and your budget and goals need to adapt accordingly. Denise regularly reviewed her financial goals to make sure she was still on track. When she experienced an unexpected expense, she quickly shifted her savings toward her emergency fund. However, after a few months, she was able to return to her goal of saving for a vacation. Reviewing your goals regularly will help you stay focused and adjust your budget when necessary. Creating a budget is one thing, but sticking to it is another. One of the biggest challenges people face when it comes to budgeting is maintaining consistency. The excitement of starting a new budget often fades after a few weeks, especially when life gets busy or unexpected expenses arise. But the key to achieving financial freedom is making budgeting a regular part of your life. Why consistency matters. The importance of consistency in budgeting cannot be emphasized enough. Consistency is what keeps you on track with your goals, helps you avoid unnecessary debt, and ensures that you're saving for your future. Without consistency, budgeting can feel like an overwhelming task that you don't want to revisit. However, when you make a routine, it becomes easier to manage, and you'll be less likely to fall off track. Think of budgeting like any other habit. At first, it takes effort and discipline, but over time, it becomes something you do without thinking.